What's up, everybody? This is Erik Werlin here, and I am sitting with Ryan Elder from Rick and Morty. How you doing this morning?
I'm doing good. How are you, man?
Doing good. I've got my coffee, so the more I'm drinking, the better I'm getting.
There you go.
So, how's your Wondercon been this weekend?
Well, it's good. I mean, I just got here a few hours ago, so I didn't have a chance to come out for the whole thing. I wish I did. I love cons. I go to them all the time, so I wish I could have come.
Do you ever cosplay?
I have a Starfleet uniform. I do wear it on occasion.
Who wouldn't with that? If you had that, who wouldn't do that?
I know. I think I can pull off a decent Julian Bashir, so that's what I go for. But that's the best I can do.
Nice. Tell us a little bit about yourself and the show that you work on.
Yeah. So I work on Rick and Morty. If you haven't heard of it, you probably should because it's pretty good.
If you haven't, you've probably been living under a rock for a while.
I know. Yeah, I got two words for you: Szechuan sauce. No.
Oh, we're gonna go there, are we?
Yeah, and I'm, I got to work on that show because I became friends with Justin Roiland and Dan Harmon many years ago. I worked on stuff with Justin. In fact, I worked on the short video that Rick and Morty is sort of loosely based off of. If you haven't seen it, it's called The Real Adventures of Doc and Marty, and it's incredibly raunchy. Do not watch it in front of kids or even teenagers, really. It's really raunchy. But I worked on that with Justin, and his goal with that was to acquire as many cease and desist orders as he could.
Always a good goal to have.
I think it was something like that. And I worked on that with him, and then over the years, we worked on all sorts of stuff, pitches for other networks and stuff like that. And then Rick and Morty was a thing that eventually took off, and boy, has it taken off, man.
I mean, you really can't really talk to many people without without them knowing it, and it's such a popular show now. How does that feel, knowing that what you're working on has become so huge?
I mean, it's both amazing and insane and weird and like totally surprising. Like, I mean, I knew the show was good, right? Like, I watched it. I watched the pilot and said, this is one of the best pilots I've ever seen. But you never know if something's actually going to take off, you know? And I worked on other stuff that I thought was amazing, and it hasn't done as well. So, it's totally surprising, but a welcome surprise, very fun.
Always great when the work you're doing becomes so popular. What do you think it is about this show versus other shows that makes it so fun and goofy and so entertaining versus, I mean, because so many shows, like, there are so many fun shows out there, but what makes this one, do you think, different and above the rest?
If I had to guess, I would say one of the reasons why I think this show from Justin took off and other ones maybe didn't, all of the other pitches he did for different networks, is because this is the first time he was really left unhinged. He got to do what he wanted. And the network and the suits, so to speak, didn't really. I mean, they made suggestions, and Mike Lazo at Adult Swim is a genius, and he always gives good notes. But he's judicious. He doesn't just jump in and change things for the sake of changing them. And I think with someone like Justin, you have to kind of just sit back and be like, you know what, he's a genius. I'm gonna let him do his thing. And they really have given him, both him and Dan, so much freedom to do what they wanted and make the show they wanted, and I think it shows. It is kind of unlike anything else on TV, and
sure.
That's a testament to how good the network, how supportive the network has been about letting them kind of just do what they need to do to make a great show.
Nice. Well, when it comes to the music, how do you go about coming up with like what each episode's going to sound like, but still keeping everything under the same, the same feel? Because obviously all the shows need to, work together, the story-wise and everything. How do you make the music, match each episode individually for the story of that episode, but still fit in, that universe?
Yeah, I mean, the story is the very most important thing when for me as a composer, like, the story is the one thing I slave myself to. Everything else is negotiable, but the story has to be told. And so that's first priority. But, when we set out to do the pilot, Justin said, I want it to be cinematic. I want it to feel huge, like a movie soundtrack. So I listened to a lot of stuff that I love. Jerry Goldsmith is one of my all-time favorite composers. The Planet of the Apes soundtrack, so Alien soundtrack. I mean, he's one of the best.
You can't go wrong with
No,
those.
I know. And so I listened to a lot of that, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to create a sound that's inspired by that, you know. And then you just sit down with the tools you have at your disposal as a composer, and you try stuff out, and eventually it gets to the point where you've got your set kind of sounds that you go to get certain story beats told or fit certain moods. And so you go back to that you know, to keep the sound of the show consistent, but also tell the story for each episode.
Gotcha. So how much tell us a little bit about the process from when the pilot episode and coming up with the sound for that. Like because you said obviously you want to make it, sound like a motion picture, a big soundtrack. What was the process like to try to figure out exactly what the tone should be?
Yeah, I mean, it's really organic. It's not like something where you just sit down and go, make a decision, this is what I'm going to do for every episode from now on, right? But, I did the pilot, and if you watch the pilot, there's actually a lot of different sounds to the cues. They actually don't sound as tightly curated as later episodes do. And that's the byproduct of it being a pilot, and we're still experimenting at that stage. But also, it was just early on. So I remember we did the pilot, and then it was like a year before I did the next episode. So I had a lot of time to think about it, because you got to go through the whole process of pitching the pilot. They got to sign on, all of that business. So one of the big things I took away from the pilot was the cue that happens during the airport scene.
Okay.
It's very action oriented, and a lot of that, the sounds that I used for that became kind of the sound of the show from then on. So I would say of anything in the pilot, that one scene is most indicative of like what I do for the rest of the series.
Okay.
But then there's episodes that I have to do a totally different sound of show, like the Rick mix-up, the Citadel episode from season 3. I created a whole new sound for that episode because I wanted it to feel like almost a different show.
Okay.
Musically, like a different show. So I barely used any of the sounds that I normally use.
Had to start from scratch on that.
Kind of, yeah. Hopefully we do more stuff like that where I get to play outside of the sandbox a little bit. But
how long does it take when you start on an episode to having the sound and the music and everything finished and like mixed? How long does that process take?
So that is really interesting for Rick and Morty because I know this is fairly non-traditional for animation, but I work to the animatics, which means I work at the stage where it's really just pencil drawings timed to the audio, which is very early. And so I'll work on those, and then it's maybe 6 months before we prep the audio to be put on the air.
Wow, that's 6 months.
Yeah, it's a lot of time to second guess myself, basically, is what it is. A lot of shows, they start working 4 to 7 days before they
it's like,
get it right.
boom, 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 done.
Yeah.
Is there a lot of second guessing? Do you
No,
work on stuff and then go, oh, you know what, that's not really going to work now, like we got to do something different? Does that
I try to
happen a
keep
lot?
myself busy so I don't have time to second guess, basically. But yeah, I mean, sometimes I will go back and be like, you know what, I don't like what I did on that 5 months ago. I'm going to try something new. But for the most part, now, after doing 30-some episodes, I'm pretty confident of what I need to do and that it's working or not.
You got it. You've got the formula down. You know what you're doing. You've got it.
Yeah, and I try to add new wrinkles every season or so that it doesn't get. Otherwise, it's boring for me, right?
The same tone all the time.
I don't want it to be an assembly line.
Exactly.
So yeah, but it's fun.
Well, it was great talking with you, and thanks for sitting down with us. We learned a lot about this and just more about the show and kind of
inside baseball.
Exactly.
Sorry,
you see it a little bit in a different light now.
Cool.
So hope you guys all enjoy that, and that's Turning Another Page with JeanBookNerd.
I'm Ryan Elder. I'm the composer on Rick and Morty, and I'm listening to JeanBookNerd.